Okay. See participants. All right, perfect. Okay, so we're going to give it a few minutes before we kind of jump into everything to give attendees a second to come in.
Okay.
On this Tuesday morning, I was going to say it's Monday, but it is not Monday.
Yes. All the days just go together these days.
Right.
Every day is the same day. It's big weekend, little weekend. We have no idea what day it is. It's interesting to say the least. All right. So I'm going to get started with introductions and all that, and then we'll kind of go from there. So I am Anastasia Simon. I am the managing director of Shadow Labs at Shadow Ventures. We're a seed stage venture capital firm, and our focus is on investing in what we call the built space. So architecture, engineering, construction, and commercial real estate. And right now we are focused on talking about all things luxury retail. And you're like, why retail? Because retail is part of commercial real estate, first of all. Why luxury? Because why not? So my background, which is kind of ties into this, I've actually worked in luxury retail prior to coming into the tech space, worked in management, merchandising, and then also in wholesale sales on the apparel side. And so this is kind of a passion of mine, and KP, our founder, knows that. And so he's always open to ways to show off not only passions, but our expertise as well. And so today I have two amazing women with me. We have Sangeetha and DeAnna. I'm going to let them both kind of introduce themselves. So ladies, tell me, Sangeetha, if you can go first, a little bit about your background, both personally and professionally.
Sure. Sangeetha Ramkumar. I'm based in Atlanta, Georgia. And I am the founder and director of a creative consultancy called Satori at 20. And this was a long time coming to start my own agency, and I finally got an opportunity to launch it, ironically, in the middle of the pandemic. So perfect timing, or not, who knows. But, it's quite interesting, I think, because there's lots of change and opportunity, and there's always, new ideas and new thinking that comes out of that. So it's quite an interesting place to be. My past, so I've been the global design director for Intercontinental Hotels Group for the past 11 years. Most of that was focused on luxury, with the luxury brands. I was most recently involved in the launch, or rather the relaunch of Regent Hotels, which was a big purchase by IHG in the luxury space. It's a very interesting project. And personally, yeah, I'm in Atlanta on lockdown still. Well, I personally am still on lockdown, and yeah, making the most of every day, enjoying the walks.
Yeah, how about yourself?
Hi, I'm DeAnna McIntosh. I'm the founder and global retail and e-commerce consultant at the Affinity Group International, and also community manager inside of our community, Retailing Evolved. And my background has been in merchandising. I went to school for merchandising, went to FIT, and I was a buyer at several well-known retailers such as Chico's, Office Depot, worked in logistics. I've had my hand in the fashion and retail industry in many different ways. And currently my company serves small to medium-sized businesses and helping them to get their same footing and those same strategies that I executed personally in my different roles throughout my corporate career. So equipping them with those same strategies so they can compete on the same level. And I think that this conversation is great because there are a lot of small luxury brands, right, that need the same exposure as the big brands. And as we see these larger brands, unfortunately, some of them might not make it right through all of this. So how can we leverage the small business community and the small business community in these times? So thanks for having me.
Awesome. So thank you both for taking time out of your morning to talk with me. So, I mean, let's just jump right into it. I think the first thing is, before we jump into the current normal, I don't want to say the new normal because this will not be our new normal. The new normal is what comes after we get past this survive mode. Right. Let's kind of lay the groundwork for what was going on in luxury prior to this massive shutdown. The luxury market was struggling. Let's be 100% honest. Neiman Marcus did not go bankrupt because of COVID-19. They're not found, like that is not the case. Like hot tea, that's not what it is. So what are some things that you guys saw prior to this that you think luxury retailers, even, you know, not just the brands themselves, but like on the development side, things that were kind of warning signs that were being ignored in your experience? So either one of you, DeAnna, Sangeetha, whichever one would like to take that.
Sure, I can take it. I mean, just from the past few years, I mean, being in the hospitality world and, you know, retail, we definitely study retail trends as well. And it's a huge influence on how things evolve because it's much more immediate. You could already see that luxury from a consumer perspective was changing. And there were very few brands that were actually doing it right. I mean, it was really about values. Consumer values were changing. So pre-COVID, if you were struggling to be relevant, you're probably going to struggle to be relevant much more post-COVID. So there were some brands who were doing some interesting things, but again, it was quite temporary, you know. So there was definitely, you could start to see the backlash against the hype. You could start to see the backlash against excess. But all of these things, you know, luxury has enjoyed for quite a few years, and you could start to see, okay, what are the fundamentals, right? How do we go back to what luxury used to be? And that kind of timelessness still stays. So you could start to see these things kind of at the underpinnings of some of the change that was fueling in retail.
Absolutely. And I think, what is luxury? Like you're saying, you know, what does that mean in this day and age? And what is that experience like? If you go inside of a luxury department store, is that what people want from luxury at this time, right? Or do they expect that if I go into a Bloomingdale's, that experience should be way different than if I go into I don't want to say Sears because that's way too far of a contrast, but we could say a Macy's. It's the same company, right? It's a department store though. So how do you differentiate those two experiences to truly make it feel luxury? And even the products, right? I expect really cool, unique designs. Like you said, innovation's missing. So something's really fundamentally missing, not just from luxury, but from retail in general. And I think COVID is going to force innovation in a big way and fast.
Yeah, for sure. I think for me, because, you know, you always hear millennials are killing something.
Yes.
Which is ridiculous.
Right.
But you always hear this line of like, oh, millennials want experiences. They don't want things. And it's like, well, maybe it's because the things are not giving the experience that we desire. You know, like
exactly.
you're talking about in hospitality, like, I don't want to go to like my mom's version of a luxury hotel. Like, you know, you think about like back in the 90s when we were all growing up, you would see like the Ritz-Carlton or the Plaza. And it's like that very old, like monocled, like Monopoly guy. Like no one at our age range, no one in their 30s and younger thinks of that when they think luxury anymore.
Right.
And so I think, you know, to both of your points, it's been consumer behavior has been changing for a while. And everyone has been struggling to keep up. It's been large scale disruption that now we have disruption on top of disruption that really, I think is forcing them to innovate. So when we talk about innovation, I think for us being a firm that looks at technology, that's the first thing we think, like innovation is tech. What are some innovations you see that may not necessarily be technology related as it goes to, again, from developer all the way through to customer experience in the retail space for luxury?
Style, architecture, style. I mean, the built environment is a huge part of our world. You know, it's got a huge effect on our psyche, and it's how we really kind of consume the world in a way, more than product, right? I mean, product you can buy online, but to go into a store to see how it feels, the scent, the sound, the way people are dressed, I mean, that is an experience. And that really hasn't kept up with kind of the changing values of the consumer. If you think about, you know, a luxury retail experience, and going back to the point you were making about, I don't know the difference between these stores other than what the products are in them. We've come a little bit. I mean, we've done some things to make it slightly different, but we haven't really made it a true luxury retail experience. when you walk into a 5-star hotel these days, especially the good ones, not the old Ritz-Carltons, well, all the Ritz-Carltons definitely, trying to update and keep up with the new consumer, you feel like you're in a 360-degree omni-channel experience inside that space, from the service to the food to the environment to the design to everything. I don't know if there are any malls that I know of, or any kind of retail centers that I know of, luxury retail centers, where everything feels on point. When I walk in, I feel like I'm walking in, the valet pulls up, I'm greeted. There's so much you can do studying other industries. And that's where the innovation, it's such an easy, well, it's easy and it's not easy. It's easy because somebody's already done it for you in a different industry. But at the same time, it does require some rethinking of the way you used to do things in retail.
Agree. And I think, so from the product perspective, at least, luxury, I keep hearing this phrase, handmade is the new luxury, or artisan is the new luxury. And that is what luxury used to be about, right? Handcrafting things and seeing the process from start to finish. And I definitely think that's been taken away through having luxury department stores, where you can just walk in and buy something. The customer should be able to see the person, the artisan in Italy, handcrafting the leather
Absolutely.
bag,
Absolutely.
So having more visibility to what this piece or this item actually means, who's behind it, and then even starting the experience before they get to the center. Whether it's like you said, maybe they can, and I guess this is tech, but maybe they can schedule an appointment ahead of time and a car service picks them up and brings them to the mall directly to, things like that. We have to just think further out, and begin the process earlier.
Absolutely. I mean, just look at the other industries. I mean, for Virgin Atlantic, for instance, for its business, upper class passengers would send you a car and pick you up and whisk you with a side entrance. So there are other industries that have been doing this for so long that are quite interesting to look at and adapt. It's just the retail's never really had to think of it that way. People shopped, but now people are not shopping,
right?
And that's going to force you to innovate.
Exactly.
And you don't necessarily need to, completely reinvent the wheel. You can look at other examples and appropriate them.
Exactly.
And I think sometimes it's not even just looking at other examples, it's pulling back to that rich history.
Right.
Think about, you think about luxury brands like Louis Vuitton. Like Louis Vuitton right now is fashion McDonald's. I say it all the time and I mean it. It is not handcrafted. It is not like well made like it used to be, but the heritage of that brand was well crafted leather, that said something about you as a person who carried it. Right. And it said something about you, your status in society and things like that. And I think as we went from a very handcrafted, kind of society where it was artisans who were actually the ones making things into this mass produced world, I think luxury has gotten diluted. And so now luxury may mean I have a beautiful French press at my house and I'm getting this coffee that I know the whole story from the farm, in Latin America where the coffee bean was grown, who picked it, who roasted it, all of this stuff. And that has now become, I think, a part of that luxury lifestyle experience, as opposed to just, let me go and buy these like Virgil Abloh sneakers, right, and my money. But I think, so to that point, we're talking about shopping. People don't shop. People aren't shopping. People weren't shopping before this. So, to be honest, none of us were going in malls. Now we really aren't going in malls. So how do you think right now, what are some solutions you guys are seeing that you think will kind of help bring retail back to life as we are starting to kind of go out into the world? Like, who do you guys see doing it right, right now as they're trying to put these new policies in place?
Oh, you mean physical places or actual brands, virtual brands?
So physical places, I'm more concerned because brands, I think, brands right now are focusing on how do I save face? How do I make masks? How do I look like I care? They're on their marketing trip, which I can't, I'm a marketer by profession, so I get it. But when it comes to the physical spaces, so Nordstrom's is a retailer who owns physical space. They have their stores. And so they're actually rolling out some different policies. I've heard Macy's new policies. So who are some people that you're seeing who you think will be able to kind of weather this? Because I don't think Macy's is it, like, just for the record. DeAnna's like strong though.
I know.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know if people are really good. I mean, so if you think about malls, really, I mean, the pendulum swings constantly, right? I mean, before we used to have bazaars, these grand bazaars, and we would wander around and get lost, and it was quite an experience. And then we got tired of them, and then we went for the shiny new malls, and then we had lots of malls, and now we're swinging back to kind of this experience of walking down a lane and finding this like leather manufacturer that makes like 10 bags, and that has always been part of the luxury retail offer that was already growing. You know, I think in post-COVID, if I have to get out of the house for something, I'm going to get out of the house for something like that, where I'm on a hunt for the one bag that's made by this one person. And it does exist. Even in Atlanta, actually, there's a leather maker on the West Side. I mean, he is the leather maker. He can make you a belt. And you can go select your leather and you can get yourself a belt made, and it'll be the only belt you have. I mean, no one else is going to have. It's not mass produced. It's produced, yes,
Right.
but it's not mass produced. And you know who's making it. That I would get out of the house for, you know, but to go to a mall to buy a bag I can buy online, I just don't know how that's ever going to come back and at the levels that we've seen before.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, Best Buy, which is obviously not luxury, but they are a good example of how to kind of hybrid and handle this whole situation, because I mean, I think right away I had to buy a ring light for purposes such as this, but they had, you know, okay, you order it, you get there, they have the line already organized outside with the tents, and you just roll up, they hand it, put it in your back seat, and you keep going. And so as I think about malls, which I know one here opened up recently, and I just can't even fathom what their next moves are, because I know they limited certain entrances, I guess, to maybe like 5 entrances, but that creates a bottleneck then. That doesn't help. So then I started thinking, well, how can we, I mean, it would take a while, but for instance, if I wanted something from 3 different stores in the mall, is there some type of way that all the orders can be aggregated, so that if one person bought 3 things, somehow can all these orders get together and then I pick it up outside the mall? It sounds really crazy, but it may have to get there at some point, you know, but it's tough. Right, right, exactly. I mean, for now, until we can figure it out. So yeah, it's tough, but it is true, like you said. I mean, you have to have a reason to come to the mall. And if the same products are there that are online, like you said, then why come? So we have to give them a reason to come, and more than just a movie theater at this point, right?
I mean, but entertainment is huge, you know, but malls turned into entertainment centers. I mean, that's just
right.
Right. Although there have been some reports lately, and I thought this was quite an interesting idea. You know, there's sort of sports-focused malls where it's all dedicated to sports. So there's like some entertainment, some retail, which I think is quite an interesting, you know, idea. That could be a nice way to focus the energy and give you a reason, because it's more than just like shopping for clothes. It's other things, and it's got a theme, and you can get immersed in that world, which, you know, could be quite an interesting path forward. But it isn't new. You know, I was watching a show about the Silk Road and how these old bazaars, every product was concentrated in one area. So all if you sold like lanterns, you would like turn the corner, it'd be like nothing but lanterns, like hundreds of stores. And so you're like, how do they compete? But actually they do, because you get people that really want lanterns when you walk into that space. It's really wonderful, you know, like the experience of walking into a space like that. So it could be a way to reorganize some of the stores. You know, maybe there is a whole toy center, you know, and all of a sudden it's much more exciting to go there than to go to one single store.
That's true.
It could be, you know, we could always look to the past for some interesting ideas.
That's true. And I think too, the other thing that seems to always be missing from the malls is the small business community. Absolutely. Which here in Atlanta is huge. I mean, there's pop-up markets all the time, right? Absolutely. But, you know, we focus so much on these big brands that are available everywhere. But if we had a way to bring these smaller brands, most likely the mall would be the only place you could find this brand unless you went around to all the different pop-up markets to find these people. So even if that means using vacant space to create co-ops for them, so we can like grow them into being able to have their own space in the mall, I think that's a solution too.
Absolutely. There could be a whole, you know, in the grocery stores, you have a whole local section. There's no reason why you couldn't do a whole local section in the mall.
Exactly.
Interesting. So some of the things you guys are talking about, I think, are intensely interesting. How does that bode well for people like Simon and Jamestown, who are these big developers, who right now are not collecting rent necessarily because they're like the Gap saying, hey, I'm not paying rent.
Right.
You have companies like Neiman Marcus who are now filing bankruptcy. And right now it's kind of an apocalyptic, like we've been saying retail apocalypse for how long now? And now it's finally here. So how do you think this kind of bodes well if you are Jamestown or if you are Simon? How do you come in and say, I have all of this square footage, how do I retool and re-engineer to get people into my property? Because like there's a Simon Mall in Atlanta, Phipps, that's a luxury mall. I've worked in that mall. No one goes in that mall.
No one
I
goes
went
to
that mall 10 years ago. Yeah, no one goes to Phipps.
No.
There's Legoland in Phipps. I go there to go to the movies, and I'm not going to the movies for a while. So, so how do you, what if you were Simon and that was your property, what would you be doing to kind of bring people in, make them feel secure, and to kind of reinvent yourself? Or is that a thing that you can do?
You can always reinvent yourself. It just requires some thought, some time, some money, you know, you can always do it. I think in the interim, you know, there's definitely, I mean, I'm not going to comment on the interim guidelines because obviously this is a temporary situation. And it's just a question of, you know, getting through this time until there's a vaccine and hopefully it's in the near future. But post-COVID, you know, definitely we'll be facing with a different world, for better or for worse. And so I think the needs of the consumers that were there pre-COVID is going to be even more acute post-COVID. So what can you do, right? That's a mall that barely gets any traffic. And it's also not very neighborhood friendly. You know, if you think about really how do you engage people? How do you really kind of interact with the spaces around you? I mean, it's really not a very friendly space. So there's no, so if you look at, I would look at how do you kind of really extend the footprint of the mall to like make it much more neighborhood friendly, green spaces, you know, have people kind of come in even at the fringes and hang out, and then maybe they'll go in, right? And then the next thing on the inside is like, again, curation. Who's there, what's there? If this is a true luxury mall, every single store has to be absolutely curated. And again, going back to a mix of local versus international versus national brands, you know, be the leader of, and be say, okay, here's a curated mix of brands. And I think that can be quite interesting, you know, and maybe change them. I know it's a new model, but maybe change them out. Keep it fresh and interesting.
And I think Jamestown, what they did was Citizen Supply and Ponce City Market. Excuse me. I think that's a great example too of, you know,
it's a great example.
Right.
It fits the neighborhood.
Right.
You know?
It does. And especially with Citizen Supply, how you can walk in and see the makers. That's a part of luxury, right? If there are luxury makers here, which I know there are, seeing them make the products and literally watching them put the products on the shelf, or coming in and you can customize, make a custom fragrance with them. Things like that create that experience, but they're still coming in and buying. You know, I think that will be really cool actually, because people love the story, like you said. It's about the story.
Yeah, it could be very cool. I mean, tailoring, I'm sure tailoring can be in a really cool way. I mean, there are plenty of amazing tailors in Atlanta, but there's no concentration, you know, of here's where I go. This is my Atlanta Savile Row. You know, there isn't. They're all kind of dispersed all over town. And in the future, people want to make less trips. You know, why not be the place? Again, going back to like, who do I want to be in a luxury space? How do I want to reinvent myself? Am I the person that's going to provide these really customized, personalized services? And maybe I need to change my mix of stores.
Totally.
No, for sure. Okay. And so with that, kind of like digging back into these, this thing with Neiman Marcus as kind of the, I want to say this, the case for what was wrong and how that is kind of collapsing. So again, Neiman Marcus opened a beautiful store in New York. I was told it was amazingly disappointing, because it was not, and I'm telling you what people, because I was never able to go. And it was because they were saying that the customer service was the thing that was lacking the most. And it was a beautiful, well-designed building. It was in the right neighborhood, in the right property, but the customer service was lacking, you know? So, you know, outside of just, hey, let's add tailoring, what are some ways you think that they can improve across the board, that luxury retailers can improve across the board when it comes to customer service and giving that experience, outside of just, hey, I'm making this for you, the tailoring or the leather, and giving you the story? What are some other things you think of, especially when we talk about tech enablement? You know, like, what are some things you guys have seen that you think are interesting?
I would say actually tech enablement, and I'll let
yeah.
you know, that really, I mean, it could personalize so much with tech, you know, it could be super interesting, make it a gaming thing. Yeah, and that's where I see a huge opportunity for luxury, actually.
I agree. And I think what you were saying earlier, Sangeetha, about curating what the store looks like, though, you know, truly creating the experience of each brand that's inside. And I think neighborhood goods is they're not luxury, but they're a great example of what Neiman Marcus probably should have done, and they wouldn't have been in this situation today, where neighborhood goods rotates out their brands. Like you were saying, they rotate out their brands. It's an experience. You know, you're always going to get something new there. I think Neiman just fell into the same monotonous department store layout and feel. And that's why we're here today. So yeah, like you said, tech definitely, and then the store experience.
All right.
Yeah.
So we are kind of at the halfway. I'm going to open everybody up for questions. If you all have questions, you can raise your hand as an attendee. You can also there's a Q&A button down kind of below where the faces are. If you tap that, you can answer your question, and then I'll do my best to kind of get everyone's questions answered. But yeah, so any questions, feel free. You guys have more than time. We got time to just ask away. You know, I mean, I would say we have all day, but that's very untrue. You know, we're busier. Everyone's busier than ever, not shopping, you know.
Definitely not shopping, just cooking. Just busier cooking.
Right. Well, so to the point, I actually have been shopping. The issues that you're seeing though with shopping online right now is it's a cluster when it comes to distribution and logistics.
Yes.
Yeah.
It takes forever to get stuff. So I saw.
And it's kind of it's kind of the thing around Amazon. The whole thing that made Amazon such a disruptor in that space was how quickly they could get things to you. And now Prime is still taking like a week, 2 weeks, you know. And yeah, like, and I love Sephora. They are one of my, you know, they're one of my top like 3 brands that I'm always watching, because they do a really good job with giving as close to omni-channel experience as they can. And then they're also owned by LVMH, great big luxury conglomerate, always like looking at how they can add tech into what they're doing. But yeah, no, Sephora did their sale, I think it was the beginning of April or late March, something like that. And I just got a notice. It's been like 3 weeks, and they just sent a notice saying, hey, we're shipping. A lot of it has to do with safety protocols within their distribution centers.
Right.
I think some of it also has to do with the amount of us that are shopping online. And then stores are not open. And so whereas I think I could always order and they could pull inventory from stores, where I could go to the store and just pick it up, they can't do that now. And so there's inventory in the stores that's just sitting that no one has access to. And then there's issues with distribution centers and all that stuff. So I think what we're seeing, just if we want to say retail as a whole, that the business model has to be retooled. I have been on the soapbox of the supply chain is broken for almost a decade. And now people see it, that like in real time, the supply chain is broken because you can't purchase what you would like when you would like to.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, I need my face masks. Like, what am I supposed to be doing?
But I think even more so right now, the small businesses are the ones that are winning because of that reason. for example, for Mother's Day, I bought okay, I shouldn't say this on video, but I was late. And so I ordered her some candles. She lives in Miami, so I ordered her some candles from a local maker there that I know, and literally it shipped the next day. So she's getting it in 2 days. And then there is a local maker of candles. I'm obsessed with candles here in Atlanta. I purchased the candle, I want to say 10 a.m. and he was doing free delivery to our house. So by 2:00 p.m., my candle is at my front door.
Nice.
So we really have to leverage these small businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. Hyper local.
Yeah.
Right. It's the benefits of hyper local. If you're looking for a candle company local, I got you.
Yeah. Okay.
I
have a list. I'm always open to new ones.
But I think, it kind of goes back into that conversation around luxury of,
right.
The person, it's a maker.
Right.
And that's what it seems like luxury going forward will be. When you think about hospitality, it'll probably be more boutique kind of experiences. When you think about retail, it'll be, I have my shop, you can come in, you can meet with me. I will talk to you and tell you the story about how I went and got this leather from, Portugal, and I've been working on it and all these good things. And it really makes it a unique experience. And I think we were trending in that direction.
Absolutely trending in that direction.
Yeah. And I think now it's just, again, COVID is the catalyst. It's not
right.
It's pushing us off a cliff because so many brands and so many, I think even developers were afraid of what innovation could be, and what that could look like. So let's see, we're going to give it, anyone have any questions? If not, I think we can kind of wrap up.
Oh, great.
Yeah. I mean, I'm surprised. And maybe everyone did a perfect job of explaining everything.
I mean, there's so much uncertainty, it's like we definitely have opinions, but unless we put them in practice, it's going to be a process for sure.
Right.
As we try to navigate this.
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest takeaway, Sangeetha, that you have to, I think we have these conversations. I know in apparel, on the fashion side of things, there have been conversations going on, and I feel like the same players have the conversation over and over. I've been looking at people who are on the real estate side of retail, and it's like the same players, same conversation, but no one's putting things into practice. So hopefully this is giving everyone the kick they need to stop talking innovation and to put it into practice.
True.
Oh, wait. Okay, so we have a question. Can brands take advantage of local businesses and how? So plugging brands like big department stores with the local retailers.
Yeah, they could do collabs. I mean, I think that could be quite interesting. I don't know if they've, it's always interesting to me that these big brands like Gucci or Louis Vuitton, I mean, it was consistently the same product no matter where you went in the world. And it was such a missed opportunity because you're like, there's so many interesting designers in these countries. Surely you could do some limited edition collaborations with local designers, and it's only available in that market.
Right.
It could be a really nice way of tying that global local kind of disconnect right now together, And it's also, again, from a curation perspective, makes the brands look quite interesting because they're really investing not only in the local community, but also in up and coming emerging designers. Right. I'm sure they do it now already, but they're not looking at it from how do I really make this a global, international, sort of almost like a travel log, around the world. That could be one way to look at it.
And I think for the bigger retailers, such as the Neiman's, it's difficult from seeing it from behind the scenes to work with local brands for many reasons. But for example, the systems that a department store would use, like barcodes, for instance, all the products need barcodes. Local brands don't have those 9 times out of 10. Or even the order processing systems, they use EDI, electronic data interchange. They have no clue what that is. So trying to bridge those two gaps together is a lot of work. It's very difficult.
Unless it's a new product, unless it's an actual new collection.
Right.
Designed.
Yeah. So, but I mean, Macy's did do the workshop at Macy's. So they found, a hybrid to that. So they are carrying local brands that way. So not saying that that's the answer either, but there's a way. It's just they, like you said, they have to be committed to doing it and wanting to dedicate a person or maybe a couple people from their team to execute it.
Yeah, because the way that I've seen that kind of work, having done this for manufacturers, so apparel manufacturers, and having been in the space as retail management or part of like the marketing team for a retailer, usually it's done trunk show style. Like one of my good friends has a custom bag company, and she'll go into a Bloomingdale's and they'll do a trunk show, sample it and see how it tests well. Because to your point, DeAnna, like the logistics side of it, it's even things like as simple as filling the order.
Yeah.
A lot of small manufacturers, if Macy's or if not, let's stop saying Macy's.
I know we're trying to think of other examples.
Right, I think it's just because it's the top of mind. It's so like if Neiman's or Nordstrom's came to a small scale manufacturer and said, hey, we want to do a test run in, you know, the store in Atlanta, that still may mean hundreds of pieces that manufacturer cannot give to them. And then, you know, with the processes on the back end, the RTVs and all that, you don't sell
discounting.
Right. You don't sell to Neiman Marcus and then they just keep your stuff. A lot of people don't realize, you know, they send it back if it didn't work out. And now you as a small retailer, you as a small brand, you're like, oh crap, I have 200 pieces that they wanted that didn't sell. And now I'm out of money because they make that cost. And so I think you would have to get really creative from the small brand side, but also from the larger retailer side. It could be something as simple as like, hey, you have a dress line and you do custom. Why don't you come in and give a tailoring experience? You know, and I think that's the easy way to start moving in that direction. But yeah, it's to your point, it's the logistics is what really stops a lot of it, because small brands can't afford a lot of that. And again, those larger department stores don't want to. So they
they
like,
don't.
it's crazy because you see a company like Barney's who filed for bankruptcy. Barney's was amazing at bringing in emerging designers. They used to find like the cool, hip new designer, bring them in and build that brand. You know, brands were built in those stores. And the minute Barney stopped doing that, their brand went bankrupt.
Absolutely.
You know,
absolutely.
So, you know, like it's so crazy. What do you foresee as the experience? What do you foresee as the experience post-COVID from the development standpoint, like that physical store experience?
Oh gosh, I mean, I think we need to. That's really the one area that definitely needs a redo. I mean, can we at least have more interesting architecture? You know, architecture that makes people feel good, not just the sort of rote, banal. I mean, I see some new developments that I swear look like the same architecture that a roadside hotel would do. And it's supposed to be luxury. You know, I mean, it's the same kind of, there's some innovation opportunities there, you know, just in architecture. It's not about hiring a star architect, but just kind of a different brief, which I know, you know, some communities, some cities, it's really difficult to do something different. But I think that's where we need to start, is like, if this is my legacy, if I'm building something new now, I would really look at the way it looks, how people feel in them, how you design it, how do you bring the neighborhood in, how do you really bring nature, because we're now in a place where nature is good, buildings are bad, you know, because of this whole, the shock that we've received through COVID. So I think that some of that sentiment is not going to change. So how do you really bring areas where people feel like they're outside, but do it in a way that isn't just your typical landscaping courtyard in the middle of the space? I mean, that's not very exciting, even though it's needed. So I think architecture, you know, definitely is a huge opportunity.
And I think I was actually talking to someone about this the other day, but what does touchless retail look like?
Oh, that's the given.
I mean, it sounds crazy, but I know I think Lenox now, well, at least some of the stores in Lenox, the customers can't try on clothes, right? So it's like, well, I'm coming in the store so I can try things on. So if you take that away, there is an issue there. So I guess just trying to figure out what that looks like. And the keypads, which we all know is like the dirtiest part of a store, making sure that those are clean, or making sure they're all Apple Pay enabled, for example. So just really going back to think about the experience from beginning to end. And if any way we can make that touchless or less high touch, it's going to be interesting.
Technology could be cool there too. I mean,
yeah,
you could try on glasses now. You could try on the clothes in the store against the background that maybe you're trying on, I don't know, resort clothing, and you need a background of a resort to see how it's actually going to look. I mean, you could travel virtually. And try, I mean, I've never seen that before, so that could be quite interesting inside a store.
Yeah, I also think too, when we talk about store design, it also comes down to the layout. Because DeAnna, like you, I studied merchandising, and that flow and the layout of stores. Right. I swear stores have not changed since malls became.
Oh no, they haven't.
We have not changed how we try to herd people through the store. And I think that like my pet peeve is always going into a store that's unnecessarily cluttered.
Yes.
That's way too much product on the floor. And so I think we have to, and you have to think about that from a standpoint of with COVID, it's harder for us to maneuver and social distance if the store is traditional department store layout, where you have the main aisles and then you have these little clusters of clothes that I have to wade through to kind of get what I want, you know? So I think really rethinking how we merchandise these stores and how everything is planned. And then you guys are talking about trying on. So AR, VR, all that stuff, definitely. Like there are AR mirrors that you can use. It's giving you that clueless experience that we all have been dreaming about. By we, I mean me. Try on your clothes digitally. And so you will see yourself, and it's like, you know, it's a Snapchat filter of the clothes. You don't get to fit. You don't get the same experience of filling it and the fit and things like that, but you get to see it on you, you know? And I think that's another extension that could be added into an app to give you that at home as well. You know? Like Sephora does AR makeup try on. You can do that for clothes. That's already a thing that they have. So I think it's really right now understanding how do we deliver something that's touchless, that's also personal, that's also creative, that's also fulfilling all of those human needs we have for shopping. But again, isn't being done in a way where we can't get a return. Because at the end of the day, this is a business, you know, and all of these things are cool and great and fun, but to implement technology very rapidly in an industry that is very slow to adopt, that may not have the technical talent already on their team, that has no idea how to reach out to startups and get engaged with them, I think it's expensive for them. They feel it's an expensive thing.
Oh yeah.
Y'all come in with the question. To what extent are stores of the future actually retail experiences versus more of a marketing tool to showcase their brands? Yes, I'm all for that.
Yes, absolutely. It's a giant window.
Yeah.
If people continue to buy online, do stores de-evolve to just being fancy billboards?
Yeah. Why not? I mean, it could be interesting. So, you know, there's this strip of stores in London called the Grove. I think that's what it's called, the Grove.
Yeah.
Have you been? It's quite, so you go in, it's a bar, and then you're surrounded by these kind of vignettes of clothing. I don't know if anybody actually buys the clothes, but it's really beautifully arranged. And then you're having a drink, and then you can go to the next one, and it's a restaurant. And yeah, I mean, you could create entire vignettes of your whole collection. You know, go super creative, and then just combine it with something else that's a bit more, you know, actually gets people in. Whatever.
And I think Nordstrom Local is a good example of that, where, you know, they're local. I can't remember how many stores they have now, maybe 5, I think, but it's not, they don't sell clothes in there. You're just picking up online orders. And then there's a bar inside, you can work in there. There's a tailor, a nail salon. So it's an actual service point. I think that's maybe the difference, is the stores could now be more service driven versus merchandise driven. So yeah, I think that's really interesting, actually.
Interesting.
But I think that people still want the experience of trying on clothes, though. Yeah. E-commerce is great.
And to see it in person. You had to see it in person. It always looks different in person.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think that part will ever go away. It's just we have to innovate as we do it. We can't just sell clothes or sell items anymore. You have to have a service component or some type of experiential element with it. I think that's the difference.
Yeah, for sure. I think this idea of the store as media has been taking hold for a moment. And so it's like, instead of looking at your store as, you know, we're talking about units coming in and all that other stuff, you should be looking at your store around impressions. You know, how are you tracking impressions for your store? And it's about making sure that your brand itself and your brand experience, how is it filling up that square footage, you know? And so I think, yeah, to your point, I didn't even know, I'd heard of the Nordstrom local. I didn't know they were doing all of that in it. I think that's very cool.
It's super cool.
You know, it's giving you the Nordstrom experience. Cause like I've been to the Nordstrom cafes and things like that. And it's just giving you a different touch point with the brand. It's like I tell people right now, one of my favorite brands that I'm looking at is Nike, which is not luxury. And we're not even going to talk about their retail experience. We're going to talk about experience. So Nike has the Nike Training Club app, and they made everything on their premium platform for free right now because we're all at home. And again, that's media and that's brand loyalty. And I will not buy anything right now, but I'm going to remember that. And so if you look at your store in the same way as you would look at a social media channel, you know, what experience are you giving to your customers when they come in that they walk away and they say, Nordstrom's gets me. I may not have bought anything today, but this is where I feel comfortable. I feel confident. I like this brand. I'm going to stick with them, you know?
Absolutely.
Right.
Everybody wants to feel special. I mean, that is the ultimate. I mean, that's really, we're all in service of other people, right? To make them feel special and comfortable. And so, yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Me too.
All right. Yeah. So I think with that, I feel like that was a good note to land. Like you, Sangeetha, saying, you know, that's what we're here. We're here in service. You know, we're all in service to make everyone feel human. I think that's
absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's crazy to say that as like a luxury retail thing, but like
all the luxury masters, you know, they're not more than just craft, you know, it's
right. It's true.
You know, right.
There's beauty there that somebody really appreciates and makes their day better. Then yeah, you've done your job.
Yeah, and we're gonna end on that note because I think you're like, I'm saying it because it sounds so beautiful. It's so cheesy and cliche to say it like that, but it's so beautiful. And I think what you're saying is what you ladies have brought to the table in this conversation is it's just so helpful and it's amazing. And I hope everyone got something out of it. I know I did. So thank you so much for sharing your time and your effort.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good rest of the day.
You all have a good rest of your big weekend, little weekend, whatever we're calling it. And yeah, we'll have the recording available to everyone who attended. You'll probably get that in like the next few hours or so. And then we also are wrapping these up as podcasts. So keep an eye out for that. And thank you guys and have a great one.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.